At dinner with the lawyer, my business partner pushed me down the mansion stairs. We pretended to die and vanished. We were about to sign a new will when everything turned into betrayal. At dinner with our lawyer, my own business partner, my best friend of 30 years, lured me to the mansion staircase and pushed me down, thinking no one would see. I survived. My wife survived. And while everyone believed we were dead, we watched from the shadows as every piece fell into place. I didn't scream. I didn't react. Our return would be cold, surgical, and impossible to ignore. This is the story of a man who died twice, once when he was pushed, and once when he realized his best friend wanted him dead. Subscribe for more stories of betrayal and calculated when trust becomes a tombstone. My name is Robert Harrison. I'm 62 years old and I've been dead for 8 months. At least that's what my former business partner thinks. That's what the newspapers reported. That's what everyone who attended my funeral believes. But I'm very much alive, and I'm about to destroy the man who tried to kill me. Let me take you back to the night it happened. October 12th, the night I learned that 30 years of friendship meant nothing when money was on the line. I built Harrison and Mitchell Construction from nothing. Started in 1985 with a pickup truck, a toolbox, and a dream. My partner James Mitchell joined me in 1990. We were young, ambitious, hungry. He was my best friend, had been since high school. When he asked to come on board, I didn't hesitate. I made him a full partner. 50-50 split, everything equal. That was my first mistake. By 2024, our company was worth $340 million. We'd built half the commercial real estate in Denver. Shopping centers, office buildings, luxury condos. The Harrison and Mitchell name was synonymous with quality. I had everything. A beautiful wife of 35 years, Catherine. A mansion in Cherry Hills Village. Respect in the business community. Health, wealth, happiness. But I was getting older. Tired. I'd survived prostate cancer 3 years ago, and it made me think about mortality, about legacy, about what I'd leave behind. That's why I called the meeting with our lawyer, Thomas Brennan, for October 12th. I was going to change my will. You see, I'd discovered something about James. Something that made me question everything about our partnership. 3 months earlier, I'd been reviewing company finances, routine stuff, making sure everything was in order for tax season. That's when I noticed discrepancies. Small at first, a few $1,000s here and there, easily explained as accounting errors. But when you dig deeper, patterns emerge. James had been embezzling from the company for at least 7 years. Not huge amounts. He was too smart for that. But systematic. Steady. Over the course of those 7 years, he'd stolen approximately $12 million. I hired a forensic accountant, quietly, discreetly, had them trace every dollar. The report came back damning. James had created shell companies, falsified invoices, manipulated bids on projects, taken kickbacks from contractors. He'd been bleeding the company dry while smiling to my face every single day. I didn't confront him immediately. I'm a careful man. I wanted all my ducks in a row before I made a move. So I scheduled a meeting with Thomas Brennan, our company attorney, to discuss revising my will, and more importantly, to discuss criminal charges against James. The meeting was set for 7 p.m. at my home. Dinner first, then business. Catherine insisted on hosting. She always did enjoy playing hostess, and Thomas was an old family friend. What I didn't know was that James had found out about the meeting. What I didn't know was that he'd panicked. What I didn't know was that he'd decided there was only one way to protect himself. And the evening started normally enough. Thomas arrived at 6:30, briefcase in hand, that same warm smile he'd had for 20 years. Catherine had prepared a beautiful dinner, roasted lamb, her specialty. We ate in the formal dining room, discussing business, the economy, grandchildren. James arrived at 7:15, fashionably late as always. "Sorry, traffic was murder," he said, clapping me on the shoulder as he took his seat. Murder. Interesting choice of words, in retrospect. We made small talk through dinner. James seemed nervous, kept checking his phone, drinking his wine faster than usual. I attributed it to guilt. If I'd known what was really going through his mind, I would have run. After dinner, Catherine excused herself to the kitchen. "You men talk business. I'll bring coffee." Thomas opened his briefcase. "Robert, you mentioned you wanted to revise your will. What changes are we looking at?" I glanced at James. His face was carefully neutral, but I saw his jaw tighten. "Significant changes," I said. "Thomas, I need to discuss something serious with you, something that may require criminal prosecution." James stood up abruptly. "Robert, Could I speak with you privately for a moment, before we get into whatever this is? I should have said no, should have kept Thomas in the room as a witness. But old habits die hard. 30 years of partnership meant you gave your friend the benefit of private conversation. That was my second mistake. Excuse us, Thomas. We'll just be a moment. I followed James out of the dining room, down the hallway toward the grand staircase that curved up to the second floor of our mansion. The staircase I'd always been so proud of. Imported Italian marble, custom wrought iron railing, 22 steps of architectural beauty. 22 steps that were about to become a murder weapon. James stopped at the top of the landing, his back to the stairs. Robert, I know. Know what? About the forensic accountant, about the investigation. I know you found the money. My heart rate picked up, but I kept my face neutral. Decades of negotiations had taught me never to show fear. Then you know why I'm changing my will, and why we need to talk about restitution and consequences. James laughed, a bitter, desperate sound. Consequences? Robert, do you have any idea what consequences I'm facing? If this goes public, I lose everything. My reputation, my freedom, my family. I'll die in prison. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. From us. From the company we built together. The company you built. James spat. That's how you always saw it, wasn't it? Harrison and Mitchell. But really, it was always just Harrison. You're the genius. You're the visionary. I'm just the sidekick who got lucky. James, that's not... Don't patronize me. His voice echoed in the high-ceilinged hallway. Do you know what it's like living in your shadow for 30 years? Watching you get all the credit, all the respect, while I do the same work for the same pay? You're the name everyone remembers. Harrison and Mitchell, but they really mean Harrison. So you stole $12 million because your ego was bruised? I took what I deserved, what I earned. You owed me that money, Robert. You owed me recognition. You owed me... He was getting unhinged now, his face red, spittle flying as he shouted. I'd never seen him like this. That's when I noticed where we were standing, me with my back to the hallway, him between me and the stairs. That's when I saw the calculation flash across his face. That's when I understood. James, whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking that you're 62 years old. You've had cancer. You're on blood thinners for your heart condition. And tragic accidents happen to men our age, especially on these beautiful but treacherous marble stairs. My blood ran cold. You can't be serious. The will hasn't been changed yet. As your partner, I inherit your shares of the company. 50% becomes 100%. The embezzlement investigation dies with you. No one else knows about it. It's perfect, really. Tragic, but perfect. I took a step back. Thomas is downstairs. Catherine is in the kitchen. You'll never get away with this. Thomas will find you at the bottom of the stairs. Catherine will hear the fall and come running. They'll both see that your friend tried to save you but couldn't reach you in time. I'll be devastated, heartbroken. I'll give a beautiful eulogy about our 30-year friendship. He took a step toward me. James, don't do this. We can work this out. The money. Keep it. I won't press charges. Just let this go. It's too late for that. Another step. You made me a criminal in your eyes. You were going to destroy me. I'm just defending myself. I backed up further, but he was faster. His hands shot out, shoving me hard in the chest. I stumbled backward, my feet tangling, my arms windmilling as I tried to catch my balance. But there was no balance to catch. I was falling. Those 22 marble steps came up fast. I hit the first one with my shoulder, the second with my hip. By the third, I'd lost all sense of which way was up. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how I die. Betrayed by my best friend. I remember hearing Catherine scream. I remember the world going dark, but I didn't die. I woke up in agony. Every part of my body was screaming. I tried to open my eyes, but one was swollen shut. I tried to move, but pain lanced through my ribs. Someone was holding my hand. Catherine, don't move, she whispered. Don't make a sound. I managed to crack open my good eye. We were still at the bottom of the stairs, but something was wrong. Thomas and James were standing 10 feet away, talking in urgent whispers. Called 911, they'll be here in minutes. Story straight. You saw him fall. I tried to grab him, but... Catherine saw you push him, James. She was coming back from the kitchen. She saw everything. My wife's hand tightened on mine. She leaned close, her lips barely moving as she breathed into my ear. I saw him push you. Thomas saw it too. James knows we saw. Robert, he's going to kill us, all of us. I heard him tell Thomas that we're all witnesses, we're all problems. We have to play dead. We have to make him think you didn't survive. It's the only way. My mind was racing despite the pain. She was right. If James had been willing to push me down the stairs, he wouldn't hesitate to silence witnesses. But how could we? The sound of sirens cut through my thoughts. Ambulance approaching. Catherine's voice again, barely audible. When they check your pulse, hold your breath. Slow your heart. You've been training for that charity marathon. You know how to control your breathing. Make them think you're gone. I'll collapse. Pretend shock. We'll figure out the rest later. Trust me. Trust. The word that had defined my relationship with James for 30 years. I was about to put that trust in my wife instead. The paramedics burst through the door. I let my body go completely limp. Stopped fighting the pain. Focused on slowing my breathing, my heart rate, using every meditation technique I'd learned over the years. Male, early 60s, unresponsive, fell downstairs. Hands on my neck, checking for a pulse. I'm not getting a pulse. Start compressions. Catherine screamed. Perfectly timed, perfectly anguished. No. Robert. No. She collapsed beside me, sobbing. One of her hands landed on my chest, pressing down in rhythm with the compressions. But her fingers were moving, tapping out a message in Morse code. Something we'd learned as a party trick years ago, never thinking we'd actually use it. Play. Dead. Trust. Me. The compression stopped. Still no pulse. Time of death, 8:47 p.m. I heard James's voice, shaking with what sounded like genuine grief. Oh God, Robert, I'm so sorry. I tried to catch you, I tried. Then Thomas, quiet and steady. James, we need to talk. Now. As they moved away, Catherine leaned over me one more time. Her tears real, but her voice steady. Don't worry, my love. We're going to bury you, and then we're going to bury him. Dead men take better aim. Here's what you need to understand about faking your death. It's easier than you'd think if you have money, connections, and a wife who's smarter than everyone else in the room. Catherine had been planning for this possibility for weeks. You see, she'd known about James's embezzlement before I did. She'd noticed the discrepancies when reviewing our tax returns. But unlike me, she didn't confront the problem head-on. She prepared for every possible outcome, including this one. While the paramedics were trying to revive me, Catherine had already set things in motion. A text to her sister, a retired FBI agent. Protocol Delta. Now, Protocol Delta was our family's code for, we're in danger and need to disappear. Within 20 minutes of my death, Catherine's sister had contacted a coroner she trusted, a man who owed her several favors from her FBI days. Within an hour, my body had been transferred to a private facility. Within 2 hours, I was actually awake, being treated by a doctor who didn't ask questions and didn't file reports. I had 3 broken ribs, a fractured collarbone, severe bruising, and a concussion. But I was alive, and I was furious. For the first week, I stayed in a secure location, a cabin owned by Catherine's sister in the mountains outside Boulder. Catherine had collapsed from grief and been sedated by her doctor, staying with family to recover from the trauma. In reality, she was with me planning our next move. James thinks you're dead, she said, pacing the cabin's living room. He thinks he's gotten away with it. The police ruled it an accidental fall. You lost your balance, tragic but not suspicious. What about Thomas? He saw the push. Catherine's face darkened. Thomas is dead. My blood ran cold. What? Car accident. 3 days after your death. Drove off a mountain road. James was very upset at the funeral. Jesus Christ, he killed Thomas. Of course he did. Thomas was a witness, a liability, just like we would have been. I was silent for a long moment, processing. My best friend hadn't just tried to kill me. He'd successfully killed someone else to cover it up. What's our move? I finally asked. Catherine sat down across from me, and I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with 40 years ago. Brilliant, calculating, absolutely ruthless when protecting her family. We let him think he's won, she said. We watch him. We document everything. And when the time is right, we come back from the dead and we destroy him so completely, he'll wish he'd actually succeeded in killing us. Over the next 8 months, we became ghosts. Catherine had transferred funds to offshore accounts years ago, emergency money just in case. We had enough to live comfortably while staying hidden. We watched James from afar, tracked his movements, his communications, his actions. What we found was sickening. Within 2 weeks of my death, James had moved to seize complete control of the company. He claimed I'd verbally expressed wishes to leave everything to him. Without the revised will, which had never been signed, he had a legitimate claim. Within a month, he'd sold my mansion. Too many painful memories, he told reporters. Within 3 months, he'd started dating. A woman 30 years younger, flashy, expensive. Within 6 months, he'd nearly bankrupted the company through bad decisions and excessive personal spending. He was living like a king on my grave. But he'd made mistakes. Lots of them. He'd gotten sloppy with covering the embezzlement. Now that he thought he was safe, he'd actually escalated, taking money more openly, assuming no one would question him. He'd been careless with Thomas's murder. There was evidence. Security footage from a traffic camera showing James's car following Thomas's on that mountain road. The police had never looked for it because they'd ruled it an accident. But we found it. And most importantly, he'd talked. In private, to his new girlfriend, to business associates after too many drinks, about how he'd finally gotten what he deserved, about how Robert had been holding him back, about how some problems solve themselves when you give them a push. We recorded all of it. At the 8th month after my death, we made our move. James had called a major board meeting at Harrison and Mitchell. He was planning to rename the company, Mitchell Construction Group, erasing me from the legacy we'd built together. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. At 1:55 p.m. I walked into the conference room. You should have seen their faces. James went white. Actually stumbled backward, knocking over his chair. No, you're dead. I saw you die. You saw me fall, I said calmly, walking to the head of the table, my seat. But reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. The board members were in shock, looking between James and me like they were seeing a ghost, which I suppose they were. Robert, one of the board members finally gasped. How? We all attended your funeral. Closed casket, I said, for obvious reasons. James was hyperventilating now. This isn't possible. There was a death certificate, a coroner's report. Your wife identified your body. My wife, I said, and Catherine walked in behind me, very much alive, is an excellent actress, and we have excellent connections. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder, slid it across the table to the board members. Inside, you'll find evidence of 7 years of embezzlement by James Mitchell, $12 million stolen from this company. You'll also find evidence that Mr. Mitchell pushed me down the stairs of my home on October 12th in an attempt to murder me and cover up his crimes. And you'll find evidence that he murdered our attorney, Thomas Brennan, who witnessed the attempted murder. James was shaking his head frantically. No, this is insane. You faked your death. You're the criminal here. I faked my death because you tried to kill me, I said coldly. And because I knew if you thought you'd succeeded, you'd get comfortable, sloppy, you'd reveal yourself, and you did. I pulled out my phone and played an audio recording. James's voice, slightly drunk, talking to his girlfriend. Robert was always so self-righteous, so perfect. Well, who's perfect now? He's dead, I'm alive, and I got everything. Should have seen the look on his face when I pushed him down those stairs. The board members were staring at James with horror and disgust. The police are outside, I said. I've given them copies of everything. You're going to be arrested for embezzlement, attempted murder, and the murder of Thomas Brennan. You're going to prison for the rest of your life. And the company you tried to steal? I'm taking it back. And I'm removing your name from it. Harrison Construction. Just Harrison. The way it always should have been. James lunged at me then, desperate, cornered, with nothing left to lose. But I was ready. At 62, I might have been older, but I'd spent the last 8 months getting stronger, healing, preparing for this moment. I sidestepped. He crashed into the conference table. Security, real security, not the fake paramedics from the night of my death, rushed in and restrained him. As the police led him away in handcuffs, James looked at me one last time. 30 years, he said bitterly. 30 years of friendship and you destroy me like this? No, I said quietly. You destroyed yourself. You destroyed our friendship. You destroyed everything we built. I just made sure everyone else saw what you really are. And that was 3 months ago. James is awaiting trial. The evidence against him is overwhelming. His lawyer is pushing for a plea deal, but the DA wants the maximum sentence. Murder, attempted murder, embezzlement, fraud. He's looking at life in prison without parole. The company is thriving again. Turns out, removing a parasitic thief from the organization is good for business. Catherine and I, we're better than ever. There's something about surviving a murder attempt together that either destroys a marriage or makes it unbreakable. Ours is unbreakable. We sold the Cherry Hills mansion. Too many bad memories. Bought a smaller place in Aspen. Quieter. More secure. I'm thinking about retiring for real this time. Handing the company over to my son. Spending more time with grandchildren. Actually enjoying the years I have left. Because here's what I learned from dying and coming back to life. Time is precious. Trust is rare. And the people closest to you are capable of anything when money is involved. I gave James Mitchell 30 years of loyalty, friendship, and trust. I made him a millionaire. I treated him like a brother. And he tried to kill me. But he failed. And now he's the one who's dead. At least, dead to the world that matters. Locked in a cage. Forgotten. Erased from the legacy he tried to steal. Meanwhile, I'm alive. Really, truly alive. In a way I wasn't before the fall. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. They're right. I died on those marble stairs. The old Robert Harrison, the trusting, naive man who thought loyalty was reciprocated, he died that night. But a new Robert Harrison got up from that fall. Harder, smarter, more careful. And he made damn sure that his would-be killer paid for every second he thought he'd gotten away with murder. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that moment at the top of the stairs. The look in James's eyes when he decided my life was worth less than his secrets. I think about Thomas Brennan, who died because he witnessed a crime. A good man, killed to tie up loose ends. I think about how close I came to actually dying. How one different angle, one different impact, and I wouldn't be here. But mostly I think about how I beat him. James thought he'd won by pushing me down those stairs. He thought he'd eliminated his problem, covered his tracks, secured his future. But he gave me something more valuable than he could have imagined. The element of surprise. The advantage of being underestimated. The power of being dead while still being alive. He thought he was pushing me to my death. Instead, he pushed me into my rebirth. And when I came back with a vengeance that he never saw coming. Because that's the thing about trying to kill someone and failing. You create an enemy who has nothing left to lose and everything to gain. You create someone who's already died once and isn't afraid to risk it all again. You create the one thing you should fear most. A ghost who can still fight back. James Mitchell pushed me down the stairs. But I'm the one who pushed him into hell.